When we were kids, we all had our go-to happy place, our escape. We gravitated to art, movies, bands, musical, or books. Something that did not make us feel alone, but empowered us in a world of love, magic, and adventures. Come with me as we explore the wizarding world with William Phoenix. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to yet another installment of Wizarding with William Phoenix. As you all know by now, this is a multi-installment episode on the wonderful wizarding world of Harry Potter. Everything from J.K. Rowling herself to the mythology, to the characters, the books, the movies, the cosplays, society, and what it has brought to the world. On this episode, we are going to be covering the potions and spells with the wonderful, beautiful Miss Lexa joining us. Good evening and welcome.
Good hello.
And thank you for taking the time to sit with me and go over this, well, sometimes dark aspect of the world of magic, because as we all know, not all potions and spells are good ones. But hey, it's all about how you use stuff, right?
Correct.
So,
and thank you for having me. And I mean, it's good that you pointed out, because that's how I met you, is through all the Harry Potter shenanigans.
Yeah, shenanigans. First couple pictures I took. So, quick back history on how our friendship developed since I spoke about how me and Katie met. It was at a Harry Potter meetup, which I believe was 9 3/4.
The first
and
one,
we
yep.
were all,
It was the first 9 3/4, yep.
Yep, the first one. And we were all standing on the stairs of the New York Library at Universal Studios, and we're all getting ready to take a picture. It was before I even became Jacob Kowalski. I had a generic horror Slytherin thing going. I don't know. I had a fedora hat. It happened. There are pictures. But I'm standing there, and I see these two girls running, screaming, "Wait for me! Wait for me!" And we're like, huh? And of course, you know, redheads. So I'm like, hi, yes, let's wait for them. Come on here, be my friend. And then within like an hour, I am dipping this girl, taking pictures with her. And she's got like this scared look on her face like I'm going to drop her, which, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I was afraid I was going to as well, because I don't trust myself. And then, you know, we took some nice, happy, drunken butterbeer pictures. And then I think, well, is that when like the whole shoe thing happened the first time?
Oh, you mean me just walking around barefoot because I'm an idiot who never learns that you really shouldn't wear heels to a theme park?
That too, but I was talking about like there was a picture where like I think I'm like kneeling or something. I'm like at your feet.
Oh yeah, that was the when we were doing the photo challenge. That was our Under My Spell, which
yes,
is quite fitting for the conversation. Yeah, I think that was one of our first photos together. Was I'm like, hey, get down on your knees and I'm gonna put my foot on your chest.
And me being me, which usually I'm like the dominant one, I just looked at her and I'm like this tiny little short redhead looking at me going, get down on your knees. And all I could do was like, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And
and here I am. I'm like not social. I am the most antisocial person ever. I don't do meeting people well. But you and I, honestly, like, we just clicked so well.
We clicked. Exactly. Like, we clicked right off the bat like it was nothing. And the next thing, because me being me, after the end of the day, I was like, hey, hit me up on Facebook. Let's meet up in you're Potter and I'm Pottering and we can all Potter together. And, well, that's how the friendship began. And a few years later, here we are.
Like 4 a.m. I just came over to your house and we were just talking until like 4 a.m, just geeking out.
Yeah, pretty much. Because then you were like, I think I'm going to go home. And I'm like, it's 4 a.m. and you live like an hour and a half, 2 hours away. And you're like, no, it's fine. I was like, all right, just text me when you get home. And
Like,
I
I
wasn't
can see
expecting you to text me, honestly, but you did. So I was like, this is the start of a beautiful friendship. All right. And here we are.
2, 3 years later? 3 years later? 3, yeah.
3 years later.
Yeah. Oh my god, it's been 3 years.
Wow, where does time fly?
I don't know.
On a broom. Oy. So let's get going with the episode, because we could sit here and reminisce about the past 3 years, and that would be our entire episode. So what do you want to tackle first? Do you want to do the spells or do you want to do the potions?
I don't know. What do you think?
Well, let's go with spells, because it seems like that's the thing that people know the most. Like, I know more people that are more connoisseurs and savants about the spells than they are about potions.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like asking somebody whether you want biology or chemistry. Most people will go biology because apparently chemistry is more difficult.
Well, I know I do have more footing in some topics spell-wise, so I guess let's start there.
Okay. So, let's start with the good spells before we go into the darker spells that we all know. Like, some people call it the cursing spells, but I don't think they're just cursing. I think they're just really better spells for, fighting. But anyway. What's your favorite spell? What's your favorite non-Slytherin spell?
Thank you for specifying.
Because we all know we're at work and we want to use that AK spell on everybody.
Oh, you mean my tattoo?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love showing that to the one night bus driver. So, honestly, I think I'd have to go with something that's most practical to me would be Accio. Because if I can make a living off of losing things within a 5-foot radius of myself, I'd be set for life.
Very good. Accio's, how many times have we sat on the couch going, I have to go get this, I don't want to get up, and just be like, right. Oh, Accio. I would probably go with the same, because, there's a lot of spells which are like practical spells, but that's just like the most practical spell.
Right, it's versatile for, like, oh, hey, I can't find something, or I just need something to come without, like, getting up for it kind of deal, so, yeah.
And ever since I became Jacob, the least favorite spell of mine has been Obliviate, because my friends like to come up to me and say, Obliviate! Which, I play in, and it's a lot of fun, but I'm like, I already hate this spell. Which is like, I loved when they came out with the second movie, and he was like, well, no, I didn't get obliviated. And I was like, it no longer works. That is great.
Well, I think that would be something to, a topic to talk about, is the shelf life of a spell, essentially.
Okay.
So there's a big discussion of whether people believe that spells are created or discovered. And that's a topic I would like to touch on as well, which is a little bit more in depth. But we see that there are some spells that wear off, but then we also see some that are more along the lines of charms that tend to stay active for longer. So where do you think that dictation of duration comes from?
I think that a spell, like the time of a spell, it's kind of like, it depends on the spell and what you're using it for. Like, for example, if you use something like Expelliarmus or Stupefy, that's instant and it's over. Like, there is no time frame for that. But then you get something like Obliviate, and the question arises, how long, like, is it a permanent spell? Is it like a timed spell which will only last for a while? And we all like to believe that not all spells are forever. Mm-hmm. But
then it also, I feel, comes down to intent as well, because he makes the comment, he's like, apparently it only erases bad memories. Okay, well, is it just in that one instance? Because obviously, we can go back to Hermione's case, she obliviates her parents, and obviously it's going to be so many more good memories of your child that they would have wound up remembering her if that was the case. So it's an intent in that moment of casting.
I mean, has JK or anybody ever talked about, like, the spell being for as long as, like, the spell comes from the wand, and the wand chooses the owner, and they communicate, you learn from each other. What if it's the wand that learns from the owner? And I'm speculating here, but for example, in Hermione's case, it's Hermione is saying, like, my owner is saying that she wants to obliviate the memories completely.
Yeah.
And because it's for their own good. So this spell is going to last longer than a spell used by Queenie, or saying, or not Queenie, Newt, that, he wants to obliviate. But then, I don't know, it gets a little confusing. And nobody's come forward to actually, like, specify that. And thank you for that really hard question right off the bat.
I think and it's been my trigger word, or my trigger phrase lately, plot immunity.
What is it?
Plot immunity.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is, because if you want to get technical with it, if there are different subcategories of a spell, there should be different words for said spell. And like I said, that's where I do want to touch on the creation versus discovery comment as well. So where do you stand on that? Do you believe that spells were created or they were discovered? Because a lot of people is like, okay, well, witches and wizards have been known to perform spells as children before they really know that they're magical. So obviously if they're doing magic without knowing that they're doing magic, wouldn't it be a discovery situation?
These are questions that, like, I've never really been asked before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I'm seriously just sitting here and thinking, and it's like you're 100% correct, because if you don't know something and you accidentally discover something, that's exactly what you're doing. You're discovering it. So therefore, the spells were discovered more than they were created, but they had to have started at somewhere. So at some point in time, creation happened, which then got passed on, and as time went by, more were created and like discovered. I think it goes hand in hand. I think depending on the age of the spell or the history of the spell, it could be one of the other, but both could exist. Both could be like, somebody woke up one day and decided, I am lazy and I don't want to go up and get something, so I'm going to create this spell that makes it come to me. Therefore, Accio was invented, or was created.
We know spells can be created because Snape created Seprumsenta. That one. So he's created that one, so it's a possibility for spells to be created.
So we know that some are created, but then some could be some, like you said, could have been discovered where, as a young child, somebody's saying something that to them is just gibberish, but all of a sudden they don't realize that, they have discovered Aloha Mora, and boom, the door opens.
So that is something I would also like to point out. When you look at spells in Rowling's work, they are Latin-based. You can pretty much break down any spell and know exactly what it does, because that's what it is in Latin.
Yeah.
So the question is, if we know that, along the lines of Discovery, we know that, say in Harry's circumstances, where he gets so mad at Dudley that he makes the glass disappear and he falls into the snake pit. So now we know he is not only performing without a wand, he is performing without a word.
Which makes us know from the beginning how strong of a wizard he was going to be.
Not necessarily, because it's commented upon that most young witches and wizards tend to display some sort of magical efficiency to an extent. And, like, that's before any of them say that you're coming from a muggle family, before you have access to any of that stuff. So it also kind of brings up, it's like, how necessary are certain things? Because we know it's stated that to cast spells without saying a word requires a very strong skill set. But, and I don't want to tie this in too much, because I do very much like to keep them separate. But as you and I both know as pagans, like, we use things such as wands in a way to direct, to kind of channel. So is it that they're all capable of doing magic without wands, but it's kind of just become a thing where they're so used to it, they kind of just keep doing it?
I think it also comes down to which, because like paganism is and Wicca are the two most known religions that people say, oh, it's witchcraft and it's witch based and whatnot. But there are other lores, there are other religions out there which also not rely but have, you know, like spells and potions and whatnot. Like, to bring up another famous one, like voodoo is another one.
Yeah.
I think it may come down to like what you as a person believe, because then in the end the outcome could theoretically could be the same. Like also like Jedism is another one. You know, like if you grow up and, you know, like you and me, and, you know, we're both pagans, and we, you know, we are around, or ever since I turned pagan in or I was 19. Oh my God, I've been pagan for 20 years. When I turned pagan, you know, it's like, oh, when then I got into Harry Potter, my automatic connection was, this is where they got this from. This is where it stems from. This is where J.K., you know, may have looked into it. If you're raised on voodoo, you know, and you have similar spells in voodoo or charms, and you can correlate them. I'm not Englishing well tonight. Then you may think that, oh, you know, this has a touch of voodoo.
Which I would also like to point out, and as you know, Rachel, she is very anti-Ilvermorny in the stance of, okay, so you were barely involved in witchcraft in Ireland, yet you're going to come to America and pretty much use information you didn't necessarily know and not have any roots in, say, Native American culture or anything like that. It's kind of like where most of the spells are obviously based in Latin. We don't see witches and wizards coming from other areas using different spells that would be based in their native language. So, like, obviously a lot of European witches and wizards, okay, yeah, so you have that main base of Latin and French and Italian and Spanish and all that. But I mean, you go over to like China and they have a completely different language and everything there. So why would their spells be the same as ours, as it's kind of implied? Like, what makes it so universal?
My original train of thought was, well, you know, we go off of Harry Potter before we go off of Fantastic Beasts, for example, because Potter came first. And it's based in England, which is, anybody that knows their history, England at one point was it was near the whole Roman Empire. And, as the Romans took over and you adapted and you learned the language, the original language of the Romans was, if I'm not mistaken, like based on Latin, and therefore that's where it may derive from. But then you bring up a good point. Why would somebody in China have the same Aloha Mora spell that they would have, here, or they would have in England?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question is, and I think that we may or may not get an answer in the upcoming Fantastic Beasts movies, because they are both Fantastic Beasts and Harry Potter take place in English-speaking countries, which both of them have had their share of immersion with different languages, and they come over here, we come over there, we learn. It's easier to learn. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the upcoming Fantastic Beasts movies are going to be taking places in non-English speaking countries for the most part, like Brazil, I think, is one of them. I want to say somewhere in Asia is going to be another one. We may see new spells, or we may get that, they use spells using different languages and therefore will be incorporated as canon. We don't know.
That's fair.
But maybe, again, speculating, maybe spells are like math. Maybe the spells are universal because it's easier to, to communicate with each other, or there's a way to communicate with each other through spells and knowing what we're doing. Where, like if I learn a spell in a different language and I'm trying to communicate with you and I'm trying to open a door or trying to learn how to open a door, you may go Aloha Mora and I don't know what you're trying to do. I may see it as, oh, this may be an attack spell if I don't know what it is. But if it's taught in a universal language, like where you you look at me and you're like, Aloha Mora, whatever language I may speak, I understand that spell is a door opening spell. And therefore it's like, oh, you're not trying to kill me. Aloha Mora is not your version of, Avada Kedavra, where I think I'm about to die. Again, speculating, is it a cop-out answer? Maybe, but that's kind of like the one thing I can think of. Just like numbers are universal language. Maybe spells could be a wizard's universal language of sorts. Make sense? Word has it that the next Fantastic Beasts will be down in Brazil, or so it seems, or in a non-English speaking country. So we shall see, and hopefully we'll get an answer. Also, it could be, are the elves like Dobby, not Dolby? Dobby, you know who you are, is getting a laugh out of this right now. Are they all from England? Because we see that there are, we see that they are also in France during Crimes of Grindelwald. Mm-hmm. Now, if they all derive from the same country, if they all derive from England, but yet they are sold off as slaves or they go to different countries, they may bring the language with them, or at least the magical spells, so that they can communicate with their masters. Could be, you know what I mean? Like,
I think that might also just be one of those, like, again, it's plot immunity. There's like some unspoken truth behind the fact that, I mean, obviously we're magic. We can essentially do whatever we want. If we can think hard enough about it, there would be a spell to communicate with somebody of a different language. So for all we know, say during the Triwizard Tournament, obviously either reading the book or watching the film, we're hearing it in whatever language our region has, and for the most part English. So we're hearing everybody speaking in English, but how do we know that the Romanians aren't all speaking Romanian and they're just using a spell to essentially translate as they go? So they're not hearing everything in their home language as we're hearing everything in ours.
Another very good point, definitely. I'm sorry, like I was trying to like literally Google if there's any explanation out there. And it looks like that so far. Just started to share. Yeah, no, it doesn't seem like anybody really has answers out there.
Be a good thing to go on Stack Exchange about.
Yeah. Actually, that's what I'm on right now. So one answer seems to be because of the nature of wizarding society and the way spells are constructed, the spells are all created using a root language similar to scientific names that classify animals.
So yeah,
which
Latin.
makes sense. Like Latin, which makes sense because like if you need to go to China and you learn how to say, I don't know, the cat, and you can learn it in Chinese, but then if you want to know the root of it, it's going to be in Latin. So it could be that they have their own ways of doing spells, but when they want to learn about the roots of the spell, it's going to come down to Expelliarmus, crescendo, ascendio, and so forth, and so on and so forth. So since none of the wizards in the book speak Latin, we can assume that they are almost exclusively based in a single language and cannot be constructed in other languages like Russian or Cambodian, but can be influenced by said other language, as is the case for Alohomora as a prime example, and then recreated in Latin-ish, the newly made-up name for spell language with English characters and influences in other languages.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
This may not be the case for written spells, which may be converted to their native tongue, think Dumbstring, of the country in which the school is located, but there is no canon evidence supporting this theory.
Don't tell Jo, she'll start going on a tangent about how that's what she meant this whole time. I'm sorry, I'm sure you already touched on this earlier.
I'm sure that if we go through her Twitter account far enough, there may be something on it, but I have to hire somebody for that, and I don't have the money, nor time, nor patience. So we're just going to keep our speculations and our answers because I kind of like that, and it's our show, and whatever, I do what I want.
I've heard so many friends just go on this thing about just like, Jo, give it up. This, yes, you may have created it. We thank you for it, but this is ours now. Stop.
Right? It's like let's just move on. Let's move forward. You're already making us wait an extra year for the next Fantastic Beast.
Yeah.
They were supposed to come out every 2 years, just like Star Wars, but no, it's going to make us wait that third year. Who knows? Maybe they're going back and rewriting the entire thing. Huh?
I'm still waiting on Ilvermorny.
I mean, I'm still waiting on Queenie to come back, so, So, as we know, there's all these great spells that everybody in our heroes use. Alohomora, Engorgio, Expelliarmus. But what about the good spells? The spells that we use. We know where we're going down this path because we have to touch up on these paths. The wonderful, incredible, but also horrible curse spells. Now, that raises the question as well: were these created or were these discovered? Because there's a difference whether they were accidentally discovered or somebody went out of their way to create spells specifically to hurt people. Which, I mean, by the same notation, they are mostly used by our people. What do you mean our people? Slytherins.
Not necessarily.
So, huh?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, but
Sure.
I mean,
Wouldn't
the
say
lore is
Slytherins
like,
did.
oh, this is only used by Slytherins, which is not true because Harry Potter uses one.
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. He uses one. So it kind of goes to show that you don't have to be a bad guy to use a curse spell.
Wait.
I think. No, go ahead.
When did he use one?
He used one. He used one during the Battle of Hogwarts to defend McGonagall. I forgot which one it was that he used.
It had to have been
I think I want to say it was Crucio. Sorry, the torture spell.
In Deathly Hallows, the unforgivable curses are used liberally by good characters, ranging from Professor McGonagall with the Imperious Curse to Harry effectively using... Oh, no, so he uses the Cruciatus Curse. Okay, so yeah.
He used the Cruciatus Curse, yes. It's actually the one that I brought up, which I know it's Wikipedia, so grain of salt maybe, but it does say at the end, the strength of the curse is determined by the person who casts it, which goes back to our beginning of this episode where we're talking about the strength and the length of a spell. Now, this is for the curse, but could that extend as well to a regular spell? Like, do you use the same strength Aloha Mora to open your front door and the same one that you would use if you were trying to get into Fort Knox? Who knows? But that kind of touches back.
Too.
Huh?
And that's also a lot of the plot immunity too, because there's the implication that you can't use that spell on everything.
That is very true. So let's use the Bombardio spell. Can you use it strong enough to blow up a building versus just, like you use it for, a defensive spell or like a regular attack spell? But I just thought it was funny that like it touches right on what we were talking about without even knowing that we were talking about it. But then again, you know how smartphones work. They're always listening.
Well, I do know in some of the research I was doing, people were bringing up strength of spells during, say, like the Battle of Hogwarts, or duels that would go on for days on end, or like hours when you're physically exerting yourself and all of this, and how it does have an effect on the potency of the spell, if you would. But a lot of, I think what the drastic ends that you're kind of hitting at, as opposed to like, oh, just blow up a building or just send somebody flying backwards. I think if that was the intent of the spell, I don't necessarily think that itself would be the spell that would be used. I feel like there would be another spell along the same lines that has a more drastic effect.
Which one thing I never understood was during the Battle of Hogwarts, and I know that we're sidetracking for a minute here, but during the Battle of Hogwarts, they go to great lengths to put dynamite on the bridge and then have the Death Eaters chase Longbottom all the way across it and then blow it up, right? Mm-hmm. Why did they not just not do that and still use Longbottom as bait and then just Bombardio the crap out of the bridge while they were crossing it? It would have been a lot less stressful trying to put dynamite all over it.
Well, you got to think if they can apparate out. If you're falling, you can apparate yourself out of that situation, as opposed to something happening suddenly and affecting you aggressively. I mean, if you blew up a bridge and you're falling, you're not like the split second you're falling off that bridge, you're hitting impact right away, so you have time to get out of it.
Okay, make for a very good point.
Also, why wouldn't you just blow things up?
Also what?
I said also, why wouldn't you just want to blow things up? I mean, there's muggles in there. Somebody's got to know about Michael Bay.
Right. Wow. We're going to the Avengers lore now with Spider-Man. Hey, this very old movie. It's like, oy. So yes, so the curses that we were so lovingly talking about. Now I'm going to bring them back up.
Mm-hmm.
So we all know that, the biggest one of them all, the most recognized one, is the loving, caring Avada Kedavra,
Mm-hmm.
which is just straight up the killing curse. Then
Which
there's...
I'll ask if that's my name because I see it tattooed on my hand.
Yeah, this girl literally has that tattooed. It's on your finger, right?
It's on my middle finger, so I can flip you up.
It's on her middle finger, just to add to it, because why not?
I'm not original. That's all, but I'll take it.
I mean, for those that don't know, I do have the actual dark mark on my left arm where it belongs. But on a certain episode, we're actually going to touch a base on the whole Death Eaters and Dark Marks. And, there are those that just simply say that, all they are just basically Nazis, which I can see, but I don't think that she really meant to put them as such in a children's book. But like I said, we'll touch base on that at some other point.
And that kind of hits on I don't want to do it too much because you do have a whole separate episode for it, but I mean... Oh no,
by all means, go.
It's very much this is a kid's book. Oh, you got this? Well, I mean, it fits. So yeah, that's totally what I was going for.
I understand people reading into it, and hang on, because I'm looking something up at the moment. But I feel like that was the beginning of people reading too much into things at times,
right?
And wanting to find possibly fault, because they just needed to find fault. But like I said, we'll touch on that on a different episode. It may be a very, no pun intended, a very dark episode, so be forewarned, where it may talk about certain subjects like Nazis, Holocaust, and the whole, what comes with it. So I'm just letting you know, if that's something that you're interested in, it may touch on those as well. Now back to the unforgivable curses. There's the Avada Kedavra one, obviously.
Mm-hmm. There's
the Crucio, and then the Imperio. Now the Crucio is the torture one, correct?
Yes.
The controlling of the mind.
Which I do have something to touch into potions with, but continue.
Okay. Which will be an excellent segue into potions, so we'll save that one for last. So going back to Avada Kedavra, it's basically just, boom, instant. You get hit by it, you die, you're dead. Thank you for coming. Here's the door. Have a nice day. The Crucio is the torture one, which we all know Longbottom's parents were put under that spell by the lovely, caring, I'm being sarcastic, Bellatrix Lestrange, which, as we see in the books and in the movies, when it's used and he sees it, he kind of feels like he's right back there, and he can feel what his parents were feeling. Why? Okay, so they say that they're unforgivable curses. Do you see yourself in any situation where you would have to use them in a positive way?
I mean, yeah, it's kind of along the same lines of, say, I'm not trying to early segue, but using Barrett serum, essentially.
It just feels like...
I'm
sorry, go ahead.
To sound too brash when I say this, because I know a lot of people's standpoints on things like the death penalty and using severe forms of torture to get information out of, terrorists and stuff like that. there's no real way to say if somebody's intention is good. We have a vague perception of what we would imply to be good. Like, oh, you're using the Cruciatus curse to get information out of somebody, but this person did a bad thing. So, therefore, you're not necessarily doing a bad thing. You're doing a good thing. It's like, it's a lot of gray area.
And I feel that, like I said, it depends on the situation. But like you said, there was the I call it the truth serum.
Veritas serum.
Yes, it feels like one is a non-invasive, so to speak, or like one of them tortures the truth out of you, whereas the other one, you can't help but speak the truth, which one would say, oh, well, that one is more humane than the other, so why would you get there? But, I mean, it goes back to, for all we know, the Ministry used it to get answers out of Death Eaters. We don't know that.
Yeah. I mean, you can't really, because it is technically a different time period. Not a drastically different one, but also we've gotten a lot more strict on certain things over time along those lines. So, I mean, during the 60s, 70s, or anywhere between Fantastic Beasts and Harry Potter, that could have been more than okay for the Ministry to have used in situations. And it's like, yeah, cool, you're working for the Ministry, you're like one of the quote-unquote good guys, but we also know that there were some messed up people in the Ministry, too. And, like,
I mean, at the beginning of Grindelwald, they say that they cut his tongue out, or they had to remove his tongue so that he wouldn't create any spells and try to escape. That's not exactly family-friendly, to put it nicely. And it's one of those like low-key things that people just kind of like most people don't pay too much attention to, but stop and think. They literally, even if they used a spell, they literally removed the tongue out of someone while they were alive and kept them alive, while putting their tongue in like this encased container.
Right, and you don't know if it was something that caused him pain or not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, maybe the Geneva Convention does not fall under the Wizarding World, I guess, because it's a Muggle thing, but that was kind of dark. That was kind of like, it's like, these are supposed to be the good guys, and one of the first things we hear in the movie is, oh, we had to remove his tongue. I'm sorry, what?
Right, and it's like, guys are witches and wizards. You didn't have like a muting spell. Like, you didn't have hell, I'll go all Beetlejuice. You couldn't have like charmed a piece of metal over his mouth or something. Like, no, you just jumped to fully removing his tongue, which doesn't make sense because you don't use your tongue to vocalize. You can still vocalize. I mean, you can't enunciate, but it makes no sense.
And the thing is, like, if this is something that like they talk about, and they talk about, like, I wouldn't say like nonchalantly, but like if it's something that they mention like that in front of others, it makes you stop and think, what else are they doing that we don't know about?
Yeah,
and are these three spells really the most unforgivable thing that one can cast? It's to me, there are other spells which, like the Avada Kedavra, it kills you. Yes, it's unforgivable. You should never kill someone. But there are things a lot worse than death.
But I think they kind of blanket fall under things like Imperio and Crucio. Because, I mean, even if you're like, oh, as the person with a very messed up mind, I want to cast a spell on someone to make them feel like their flesh is just burning off. That would technically fall under Crucio.
Okay.
So really, like, based on how much worse can you get outside of death, torture, and complete loss of control over self?
But imagine, for example, using what's that spell that Harry uses on Draco in the bathrooms and literally almost kills him?
I thought that was Sectum Sempra.
Yes, that one. If you can physically remove the tongue from someone that's a prisoner, what's stopping somebody from using that spell, which is not an unforgivable curse, and finding a way to keep that person alive but in pain? Now, you're not using unforgivable curses, but you're still using spells which are now being used for, well, again, all point of view, if you're the Ministry of Magic, it could be seen as, oh yes, we're using that, but we're using it for the greater good, versus a Death Eater that, oh yeah, I'm using it, but he's using it, but it's all for the bad, for all the wrong reasons.
Right.
Like, any spell really, when it's misused, could be, I wouldn't say unforgivable, but there are ways to use spells in a very negative way, in a very harmful way.
Right, and I feel like vaguely, and I want to say it was at some point in Fantastic Beast, they did talk about spell regulation, but also, I mean, there's nothing stopping somebody from doing anything, essentially. I mean, people murder people every day, people do bizarre things every day. Putting magic behind that doesn't change the situation. There are certain classes of spells, and I think it mostly just goes along the lines of, well, if we don't teach people that this is possible, for the most part, they're not going to figure out that it is possible. Not everyone is a Snape who comes up with a spell like Sectum Sempra, or not everyone's a Dumbledore who's supposed to be like one of the most powerful wizards of his time. Like, sometimes you got Crabbe and Goyle. Crabbe and Goyle aren't going to be that creative.
I like that. Sometimes to get Crabbe and Goyle. it's like they're the go-to for like Dumb and Dumber. Exactly.
Yep.
Now, because I don't want to rush through them, let's move on, since you were talking about Snape, and we're introduced to Snape in potions class. Let's move on to potions.
Okay. So I mean, we can keep that quick segue of unforgivable curses. One of the things that I'd seen on one of the forums in research was essentially stating about love potions. So we know love potions aren't necessarily regulated because Fred and George sell them at Wizarding Wares. So, but we do know that they are banned on the grounds of Hogwarts. But it still also falls under essentially Imperio, because you are taking someone's control away in that sense. You're robbing them of that freedom of choice.
That is very true, and I agree with you with that, and that's kind of like how the whole thing with Fantastic Beasts, when we find Jacob and Queenie that come to visit Newt, she took away his freedom of choice, which to her, it's like, do you sit and understand where she's coming from, or do you just chalk her up to, sorry, my Queenie, crazy? Because she's so, she just wants so much what she wants to come true that it's okay because the means justify the end. At what point do the means no longer justify the end? And the same thing happened, when we go back with Ron, where he was under the love spell. It's taking away somebody's will is never okay. They're always no matter what you do, you should always allow them to have the free will to say yes or no. And you are absolutely correct. And again, this may fall under, one is better seen than the other because it's not categorized under the, unforgivable curse. But it's an unforgivable potion. It's like if I came to you and I slipped it to you and I'm like, oh, she's now in love with me and she's my girl and she's my wife. It would never be real.
Right.
And it would never be fair. Because then, you even see from, in Fantastic Beasts, you see from the point of view of Jacob, where he can see what's going on, but he can't come out of it until Newt snaps him out of it with his wand. Imagine getting stuck in there where you can't, you know what's going on, but you can't stop yourself. It's not fair. It's definitely not right. And I think it's something that should not be allowed to be used, period.
Right. So it's why are these not being regulated like spells are being regulated? Why are love potions and Veritaserum and stuff like that, or even certain potions to make somebody ill or kind of make them suffer in a way, why are these not being necessarily regulated? And technically, they're being taught at Hogwarts in some stance. But I will pause for a second, because when you brought up Queenie and Jacob, I literally just thought of the one chick from Supernatural that was obsessed with Sam, and the one episode she puts him in a love spell.
Wow.
The Supernatural fandom will always come through. Okay.
And maybe one day I'll totally understand that, but right now I am trying to catch up on Supernatural, and I'm at season 1, episode 1, so getting there.
Excuse me. We're gonna need to talk about your priorities in life.
Well, I mean, yes, and I may start doing that after this Sunday, because right now priority is Game of Thrones. So I have enough time to try and binge watch Supernatural to be there by the end of the series.
Mm-hmm.
But right now it's all about GOT. I'm not even going to get into that because that's going to be a whole other show, probably with me and Lewis and 3/4, if not all, of the manbitesmedia crew, because we all have our thoughts and yes. But anyway, back to this fandom. Edit and cut.
Regulation on potions.
Regulation on potions. 3, 2, 1. And I agree with you on that. But I think that it's also kind of and I know people make fun of it, but it's true, where it's you want to play Quidditch? Go right ahead. You want to learn all these spells? Go right ahead. You want to join the dueling club? Go right ahead. You want to go to a chaperoned outing to Hogsmeade? You need a parent's permission slip. What the fuck, people? And yes, I dropped the F-bomb. Don't care. Come at me. But it's and I think that and it falls under the same thing. Some things just do not make sense. They do not. And, like you said, teaching potions and teaching these ways to take away free will, to take away... I mean, if you think about it, I know it's a spell, but when Harry Potter freezes Longbottom and he becomes the Immobulus could be a lesser form of a Crucio spell, because you are immobilizing somebody. You're taking away their movement and it's, I think that there's different tiers to everything, and it's also how you use it. That's but a love spell, why would there even be necessity? We see that somebody's desperate enough to use it, fine. But that's how it was created. It was created by somebody that was desperate and wanted to have love in their life no matter what. and this spell was not the spell. Sorry, this potion was created. Is it right? No. Should they teach it at Hogwarts? Hell to the no.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, all these hormonal teenagers, let's give them, like, love spells. Yeah, laugh. Let's do that.
Sorry. Got distracted for 1 second. And there should be, the ministry, as we see in Order of the Phoenix, really takes over Hogwarts way too much. But there definitely needs to be better regulations about all this. And it's, again, I think that it falls not onto the headmaster, but also the professor. Because it could be up to the professor. If somebody learns something outside of the classroom, fine. It is out of their hands. You can't really help yourself. You can't help it. These kids are going to find other ways to learn stuff. But try not to make it readily available to these kids on school grounds.
Right.
It's like there's got to be like Hogwarts is not exactly in their first year of teaching to where it's like, well, we're trying to figure out the kinks. No, you've been around long enough that this should not even be an issue anymore. Like, you can't tell me that in the hundreds of years that you've been around, because we're talking like back in Merlin was a Slytherin. So do the math, people. It's been at least a few hundred years.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell me that there's never been a situation where one kid used this love potion on another kid to where it's like, okay, we're just going to get rid of it now and not have it available here at Hogwarts. What's her name using it on Ron was the first time that ever happened that became an issue? Sorry, I don't buy that.
Yeah, not in the slightest.
But,
especially
I mean, what are...
when What's-Her-Face tried to sneak it to Harry.
Right?
And that was just, like, vaguely in passing. Like, they never really did anything about it. Like, that's essentially like, hey, I'm gonna drug you. Because, I mean, really, that's exactly what it is.
It is.
If we take the magical aspects of it away, potions are drugs.
And again, it also comes down to how it is used. Because, like, for example, there seems to be a potion equivalent of a spell. For example, Avada Kedavra, you have the death potion, which literally kills those that come in contact with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's one of those... It seems that if you may not be great with your wand, you can be great with the potions and still get the same result. It'll take you longer because you got to, put it all together and make, some you have to wait some time and it's not instant. But it seems that pretty much there's the equivalent of everything, and even on different levels. Now, like, if you were able to walk around with like 1 or 2 potions to have readily at your hand, what would you want to have?
That is a good question. I mean, if you want to believe that Felix Felicities would actually work, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if it was necessarily stated, but I would like a potion that kind of put a sway on my conversations with somebody, like, say, in a professional standpoint, something that kind of helps me get raises, helps me get promotions, helps me get, like, acknowledged, stuff like that, stuff that, like, would sway someone to believe, like, almost like a confidence spell, if anything like that. Or a potion. And
What about polyjuice potion?
I also, my brain just went to a place. It's like, you work in retail, girl. You know there's a potion for something. I'm just like, a potion to make people realize how shitty they're being.
Well, I mean, like I said, there's potions for everything. You just have, just like everything in life, you just have to look for it. You just have to work for it if you're into potions, because again, unlike wands, it's not instant. But hey, if you're into, potions would probably be like their version of chemistry, because I mean, if you don't get them right, it blows up in your face, literally.
But shame.
As we find out, so do some of the spells. But if you could master one of the two, would you rather master spells or would you rather master potions?
Oh, that's not even mostly a question, because I already, in my own life, and no, I don't believe that the magic in Harry Potter is real and that, like, that kind of magic is real. But, reverting back to saying that I'm a pagan, potions is my thing. That is my niche. Herbalism and potions, perfect. If you want to talk about actual spell casting, it's like banging my head against a wall. I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay. So you would go with the potions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which makes a lot of sense. And I mean, in the Harry Potter realm, in the Harry Potter world, I would be more of a spellcaster.
Mm-hmm. I feel like there's also a level of discretion available to potions as well. Like, I don't have to verbally say what I'm doing or point my wand at something. Like, I could serve you a cup of tea and you'd be none the wiser.
Very true. Very
maybe
true.
Because I'm a woman, maybe it's because I'm a Slytherin. We'll never know.
I'll never tell. But, and we're going to leave you with that, ladies and gentlemen. Food for thought. And maybe you think, if you have any thoughts, opinions, or if you have any answers to any of the questions that we have speculated on or tried to answer, by all means, let me know. And I will definitely reach out and get to know. And, the more you know, basically. And we don't have all the answers, and maybe somebody out there does. I mean, JK doesn't have all the answers, apparently, because she keeps coming back with more answers. So, But thank you very much for joining me this week. Now, if people were trying to find you or follow you, do you have any Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anything like that?
Instagram is going to be Lexa Adams. Thank you, Lewis. That's great. Is Lexa Adams or PinchofDapper. It is a relatively new account with mostly pinup stuff right now. We do have a group called Bound Town that you can also check out, where Thank You, I Made It, and I do themed events between the Universal parks and Disney parks. And yeah, that's mostly where to get me.
Which, by the way, I saw the pictures that both you and Thank You, I Made It posted on both Instagram and your Facebook. Beautiful, beautiful work. Beautiful, beautiful pictures. You guys looked amazing. I'm sorry. I am so sorry I was not there and couldn't take part in that. Because originally I know that I was supposed to. But...
the bounding bobbin then.
Yeah. But hopefully one day I'll be able to come down and partake. As for me, you always know where you can find me. Facebook at House of Phoenix Cosplay. I almost forgot my own Facebook name. Instagram, same thing, House of Phoenix Cosplay. Or you can also find me on manbitesmedia right here every week with my co-hosts Lewis and Brandon. Always having fun. Thank you very much. I'm hoping that I can round you up for another episode down the line. I had a wonderful time. I hope you did too.
I know I did. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful, magical night.